Hello everyone, for those of you who don't know me, welcome. I'm Lauren-Jane, I'm a surgical doctor. I am currently a CT1, training to be a surgeon. I've got 2 children and a lovely fiance. Today I'm going to be talking to you about my journey from where I started to where I am today. The reason I wanted to do this video is because so many of you come to me and say that your circumstances are less than ideal and you just don't feel empowered to create the life that you want for yourself. And I do my best just to kind of talk about where I've come from and where I'm going, but I actually haven't really shared how hard my journey has been. And I hope that in doing so, it kind of inspires you your own journey. So let's get into it, and I will start at the beginning. So welcome back, those of you who are here. If you don't have a drink, please get one, because I hope this feels like a cup of tea with a friend. First things first, I've got a huge disgusting ulcer on my tongue, so I can't talk as well as I usually do, and I hope that's not too distracting. So where to start? We've got a lot of layers to peel back here. So I think the first thing to say is doctors are usually of traditional making. So usually, you know, stable family life, middle class upbringing, grammar schools, private schools. And that has been the traditional demographic. But more than that, with the A-level results that you need to be a doctor, you sort of have to come from the type of family where you've got the mental kind of stability to attack your A-levels and do really well. And if you're from a chaotic background like mine, when you're 14, 15, 16, when you're doing the things that really matter, you're just not in the place to get into med school effectively. And where I'm from, so I'm from a working class town, no career advisor, no teachers, they never say to you, go and be a doctor. It's just not on the horizon at all. So I never thought about being a doctor. I had a particularly chaotic upbringing. Wonderful until the age of 9. My parents separated and I never got on really very well with my mum at the time, and I didn't get on with her partner, and it was a very turbulent experience for me. I was very, very unhappy. I would self-harm when I was 13 or 14. I just really didn't think that I would live to the age of 18 just because I was so miserable. Like I was just so lonely. I just wanted someone to love me, and I felt like no one did. And so, you know, at school doing well, that they were the least of my worries. Like, you know, I wasn't thinking about being a doctor back then. I was just literally thinking about surviving. And, you know, it's difficult now to look back and tell you how hard things were for me, but it was like screaming arguments every single night. And obviously one of the problems that I'm struggling with at the moment, if you follow me on Instagram and have been following these YouTube videos, is just feeling like I'm not good enough to be a surgeon. I'm not good enough to be on this program with all these people who I'm sure have their own issues, but who feel relatively stable. And I just completely felt like I wasn't good enough to be in the family, let alone to be doing anything as impressive as this. So I grew up, I had a difficult start in life, I think it's fair to say. And then I went off, I got okay GCSEs actually, they weren't terrible. I went off to do my A-levels, I talked about this in a previous video. I didn't do well, I started off doing sciencey type things, but I didn't do well at all. The college were brilliant. They sort of sat me down, they brought me back, they changed my classes, went to do performing artsy type stuff, and I still ended up dropping out. So I'm now sort of like 18. I spent 2 years trying to get A-levels I don't have. I ended up working in B&M bargains, and then I got a job in banking. I think because of the turbulence of this part of my life, well, before we get to that, you know, when I was a kid, I've been kicked out a couple of times, and I didn't have anywhere to go. So at one point I had a job in banking, which didn't pay very much. It was full-time. It didn't really pay enough for me to live on my own. And I got kicked out and I didn't have anywhere to live and I didn't have anywhere to go. And I went and stayed with my friend, and my friend's mum let me stay there. So at this point, at sort of like 17, 18, just again, really not in a place to be thinking about being a doctor. And if you'd have said to me in those moments of despair where, you know, I've been kicked out of my mum's house and I don't have anywhere to go, that, well, we'd be sitting here having this conversation, I wouldn't have believed you. It was a really dark time. But I think because of the turbulence that I grew up in and having low self-esteem, I ended up in a relationship that wasn't particularly good. And this relationship went on for quite a long time. And during this, I made some really positive changes for myself. So I quit banking. I decided I wanted to be a doctor. No, I didn't. I quit banking. I went to train to be a teacher, so I did an access to teaching course. And during that course, I realised how much I loved learning. And so I decided to go and do a theology degree. And then I volunteered with the Red Cross. And during that time, I decided that I wanted to be a doctor and applied to medical school, and I got in. And I've talked about all of that in a previous video about how I don't have any A levels, and I sort of went and did the access course, and then I went and did theology, and then I went and did graduate entry medicine. But what I haven't talked about is what was going on in my personal life alongside that. So as many of you will know, my son was born 15 months before I started medical school. And I'm not going to talk about my relationship just because I don't want to provoke anyone, and it's not worth it to me to. This video is about inspiring you and showing you where I've come from. So whilst this content is relevant, I'm not going to provoke anyone, and certain assertions would provoke people, so it's just not worth it to me. So this relationship was not great. It was a very unhappy time. And in my first year of medical school, I started in September. In the December, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. We had one of those awful conversations where it just gets worse. It was like, your dad's got cancer, and your next question is, you know, okay, is it treatable? And then it's like, no. And you're like, okay, well, how much worse can this get? You know, we don't know how long it's got. It's one of those things that you're like, oh, it can't get worse than cancer. Oh, actually, it's not treatable. You know, we don't have, you know. So I've talked in previous videos before about how difficult GEM was for me academically, because I wasn't from a science background. I'd never done science, so everything was new, and you're competing with people who've got biomedical sciences degrees. So they've done everything really that you're doing in that first 18 months. I've also got a child, and now 2 months in, you know, my dad is you know, dying from cancer, and I'm in this relationship which I realise now is just not conducive to me doing well at anything because it's so negative and awful. And I looking back now, I don't know how I lived in so much turmoil. And at medical school, in that first GEM portion, the bit where you lock the year off, they're always talking about how you can be terminated. So if you don't pass the end of GEM exams, one at the end of 12 months and one at 18 months, then you're effectively cut from the course. You know, no consolation prize, you know. So they talk about that, about getting terminated, and how in a cohort, you know, 3 or 4 people will be terminated. And so this is all going on in my head. And, you know, my dad is the parent that I was always closest to. And, you know, he is now delivered this awful diagnosis, and it's difficult for me to talk about this today because as I'm filming this the day before what would be my dad's 60th birthday, and he was such a young man. He died at 53, and he was a young 53. He didn't look 53, and he was, you know, he was always outside. He was an outdoorsman, and I can't imagine who he would be at 60. And yeah, so through my first degree, through that first year of GEM, it was just turmoil for me emotionally. And then we sort of eked through towards finals, which are obviously, you know, in the late spring, April, May. And then for reasons I'm not going to go into, that relationship had to end. So I ended it. We had a house which was in his name, owned, and for whatever reasons, he wanted to stay there, so my son and I had to leave, and we didn't have anywhere to go. So now I have no money. I am so aware that if I can graduate medical school, I can provide for my child. And that is the thing that is getting me through. But right now, I have no money. I have no skills. I don't really have any family support. My dad's dying. I don't have a science background, so I'm studying and working every hour. And all in all, you know, I loved Gem. It made me really happy. But throughout med school, because of these circumstances, more than just my background, I feel not good enough, because not only am I not from a traditional background like most people, a nice, you know, happy middle class background, but actually I've got all this drama going on in my own life. It's like an episode of Jeremy Kyle. And so I just didn't feel good enough to be on that course. And now, you know, I've got he wasn't 15 months by then, he was two and a bit. He was 25 months, I think, when I left. And very gracefully, my ex's parents let us live there. And that was amazing of them. They are wonderful people, but not an ideal situation. And it worked out all right. You know, we managed to get a house. My ex actually helped us get a house, and NHS boss bursaries were amazing. They gave us some funds to live on, and I was independent throughout medical school until I met Ash. Because of financial independence, I could carry on. But it's difficult now, because I know I'm looking back from a place of like, yeah, it's all gonna be fine. But at that time, I mean, I don't know where you are in your life, but at that time, I realised how vulnerable I was. I literally had nothing. I didn't have any way to support myself. I didn't have anyone really rooting for me apart from my best friend. And I had the welfare of a very small person. And I think whether I continued at med school was like flipping a coin up in the air. Like, can I do this emotionally, financially, academically? And so obviously had to develop amazing study skills to get through it, because I'm like a single parent now who planned that. And I'm doing a full-time job plus studying every evening. And that was, you know, so difficult for me. And then, you know, we come into second year and my dad dies in the December again. He dies on New Year's Eve. And throughout this, what I'm going through is a very messy separation with my son's father, and all of that takes a massive toll. One of the beautiful things that happens in this period is I start talking to Ash, who is someone who I knew years beforehand, but only casually. And he was in a relationship and I was in a relationship, and then I got out of my relationship and he got out of his relationship. And we sort of got together, and he was the first one I called when my dad died, and he has been amazing since then. But he was living in Newcastle, so he was far away. And at the time, it never seemed like it would become what it has, you know, because he was a junior lawyer, he was living life up there, and you know, I was just some woman with a child and all this family drama down here. And I was trying to do it on my own, going through med school. But you know, Ash decided that he was going to come and live down here, and he's been an amazing stepfather, and he's so supportive and so wonderful. But unfortunately, we ended up having to go through a very lengthy court battle, which sort of involved custody, effectively. And anyone who's been through this will tell you it's incredibly stressful and it's incredibly financially draining. So all in all, we have spent, I'm not going to tell you the exact figure, but however much you think it is, double it. We're talking tens of thousands, a ridiculous amount of money on court fees. And all the while, you know, Ash is he's a junior solicitor, so he's only just qualified, he doesn't earn very much. We moved in together, so I lost all of my funding. So we wanted to live in a good area so our son could go to a good school. So our rent is high, I don't really earn any money. Ash is on a very low salary, and we have these massive court bills to pay and all the stress that goes along with it. And how he did that, how he kept us afloat during that period, I don't know. We had no money. So if you see me on Instagram, and you know, recently for my birthday this year, Ash bought me a very beautiful Vivienne Westwood necklace, and we've started going away and things like that. We do that because for so many years, for about 5 years, we had nothing. Like, I think at one point Ash was going without lunch because he was spending all of his money on keeping a roof over our head. And this was so difficult for me during med school because it was an extra pressure, and it was a massive financial pressure, it was a massive emotional pressure. And he said to me, you focus on med school and let me worry about the money. And that's what we tried to do, and I think that's what allowed me to try and find, sorry, I've got a cold as well. That's what allowed me to find the mental space to get through medical school. But how he did that, I don't know to this day, like the weight that was on his shoulders. And then I finally qualified as a doctor, which was amazing. But unfortunately, the interest on the money that, you know, anyone who's been in debt will know, the interest on a massive debt, you just can't climb out of it. And we were spending thousands a month trying to pay off all of the debt. And, you know, so you might see that we rent this beautiful house, it's lovely, but we don't own it. And this is why we're out of the hole, thank God. And we're in a really good place. Ash has got a really good job now. Obviously, I'm a doctor. But Ash and I have really been through it, and a lot of people, you know, other couples have been talking to us about the things that they've been through in terms of their relationship, and they've had ups and downs in their relationship. Ash and I have never had ups and downs in our relationship. We've had ups and downs thrown at us outside of our relationship, and we've always fallen together. And it has made us stronger. But my ride through medical school has been really difficult for so many reasons, you know, academically, financially, emotionally. You know, at one point, obviously, like I said, you know, I've got nowhere to live. I've got to be in clinical skills in the morning, and I've got a 2-year-old. And you know, the thing with med school is, they say they're supportive, but if you're going to take any more than about a week off, they're going to say, well, you need to redo the year. And for me, that was not an option. I had to qualify so I could start earning money in the beginning, you know, to provide for my son. But also later on, I was aware that Ash was sort of like hanging by a thread, trying to support us. And I knew that I couldn't afford to redo a year. So there's been all this pressure on me, more pressure, I think, than on most people, to get through medical school, just to provide a life ring to Ashley, because he was doing everything for us, and he never complained. He is my hero. Unfortunately, Ash never got to meet my dad because he died. Ash and I were talking when my dad died, but we weren't together. So I did tell Dad about him, but he never met Ash, and I think that's such a shame because Ash has looked after my son and I so well, and he makes me so happy, you know. Sorry, I didn't mean to get upset. It would have been, I think you really would have liked him. They're both gentle, and I would have really liked my dad to have seen where I am today. I kind of wish he could, you know, just materialise it there. Just come and walk around my life and just see that after everything that I've been through over the last, you know, 7 or 8 years, or even longer than that really, that it's all been okay. And that I made it. Sorry, one sec. I'm okay. I told myself I was not going to cry during this. So see what I mean? Whatever your personal circumstances are, we can get through this together. So I graduated from medical school and I went into my foundation years, loved my foundation years. I vlogged that, you can see all the vlogs there. During F1 I decided that I wanted to be a surgeon, and I worked very hard. I got onto CST and I did really well throughout my foundation years. I was an amazing foundation doctor. I always got offered a job on every rotation that I did. I knew that I was smashing it, great feedback. But since I've started surgery, I feel like I'm just not doing well at all. And there's a lot of imposter syndrome going on and a lot of feeling not good enough. And if you saw my video about therapy, I started going to therapy last week. I think I've been through so much, and I've been like a bit of a cart horse, like just going on and on and on and pulling the load. And I think Ash to an extent has done the same. And I am a machine. I will keep going. Obviously, like, you know, think of what I've had to come through to be able to have this conversation with you here. But I think that it has left an effect on me in that I feel not good enough to be doing what I'm doing, and I feel worthless, you know. I've been told that I am worthless, those exact words. And it's taken me a really long time to, well, deal with that. But then I think in some ways I haven't. Obviously I'm still having feelings of not feeling quite good enough. But my future, I hope you agree, is bright. I love what I do. I'm a doctor. Ash and I are engaged. We're soon to be married, hopefully. Obviously we're very poor because of the previous circumstances. We can't afford to get married in the way that we want. We have a baby who was born in lockdown. And I love what I'm doing. I love serving my community. I'd like to be a paediatric surgeon, which is an incredible ask really, because it's so competitive. And right now I feel like I don't have the energy for that competitiveness because of what I've been through. But it doesn't usually stop me. And I am not a person that you should ever bet against, as you can tell. Like, I will keep going until I get what I want. So if you have any questions for me, please leave them beneath the video. I'll try and answer them. I try and be as honest as I possibly can in these videos, because, well, I hope it helps you too, whatever you're going through. You know that I just don't think it's helpful when you see people and they look like they're flying high, and you're like, that makes you feel like, oh, well, you know, I'm not like them. Believe me, you know, I'm hoping to fly high. I want you to look at me and think, oh, she's doing amazingly. But I want you to understand that that has come from incredible hard work and commitment. And, you know, talent is one thing. Some people have talent, some people don't. This isn't a talent. Being a doctor, achieving your dreams is not always about talent. It's about hard work and focus. And if you want to do what I do, then with hard work and focus, I hope that you can do it too. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to. And sorry for crying. And I would love to see your comments below. Thank you so much. Bye.